Here. Here.
Thank you. This evening we're going to continue with department presentations. On the list I have Human Resources first, then Fire, Finance, IT, Planning and Protective, and Non-Departmental. Mr. Lockwood with Parks and Rec is out of town this evening, so we will not hear from them, and we'll postpone that his presentation until the next meeting. For council consideration, or for the committee consideration, Monday night, August 19th at the council meeting is our public hearing on the budget. What I would like to do is after we have the public hearing, that our next meeting would then be the following Monday on August the 26th. So we will skip Thursday, August the 22nd. No meeting on August the 22nd. That'll give us a week to evaluate the input that we hear from the public. Come back on Monday the 26th, hear Mr. Lockwood's presentation, and then have debate and discussion about any amendments that would like to be offered to the budget, and hopefully work our way through those and vote on the budget to be moved on to the council then for the passage of the ordinance. Is there any objection to that schedule? Yes, sir. Mr. Bray.
What was the date you proposed for that vote to the council?
Monday, August the 26th.
Okay.
And if we don't get to it as far as vote, if there's discussion, then our next meeting then would be Monday, September 9th. But that would be the plan, is to try to get through as much as we can on Monday, August 26th. Okay. Seeing no objections, then we will adopt that for our schedule for the next couple of meetings. With that, Human Resources, Mrs. Strope.
Okay, thank you. Human Resources Department, like all the other city departments, is a service group. I've listed some bullet points on the board that actually are items straight off of our mission statement. We assist other city departments in meeting their service delivery responsibilities to the public. We assist employees in reaching their fullest potential with the city. We help maintain a careful balance between the interests of city government, its departments, and its employees, and we assist in preserving and protecting the city's assets. So a little bit about our department as far as our budget. You can see from the pie chart that 90% of our budget is personnel services. The remaining 10% is split between 7% is contractual services and 3% is materials and supplies. One of the things I'd like to point out, though, out of that 10% that is non-personnel services, 5.7% of that is for citywide services, which includes the wellness program, the background checks of new employees, and the drug and alcohol screening program. So if you actually look at the operating costs for the Human Resources Department, it's only just over 4%. So we're very proud of the efficiency of our department, which kind of talks a little bit about our employees. We have 3.5 FTEs in our department, so we're a small department with 3.5 people. One of my coworkers is here this evening, Carrie Renfro, which I'd like to point out in the back. Carrie represents our 0.5. Carrie is our part-time employee. She comes in and works every Tuesday and Thursday, and she is the one that keeps us afloat a lot of times. She is also our wellness coordinator. We have a wellness program that's been in effect now for about, I think about 6 years now, which is a fantastic program. It's a very efficient and effective program, and has had some great successes in it. And it's because of Carrie that we've been able to be as successful with that program as we've been. Like I said, Carrie also comes in and really keeps us afloat. Not only does she handle the entire wellness program, She does a lot of data entry for us, working on special projects and programs for us. Our other two full-time employees, Carla Trower and Sarah Trittler, were not able to be here tonight, although they would love to have been here. But Carla unfortunately had a death in the family this week, and Sarah had another family obligation tonight that she needed to attend to. But both of those ladies are also amazing ladies that I'm proud to call coworkers. I know that, you know, we are very lucky as city employees to have the jobs that we do, but we are, if I can kind of quote our city councilor from the other night, we are lucky to have these ladies working with us and for us. So, and also just to talk about the efficiency of our department, when I say 3.5 FTEs, you know, what does that mean and how does that compare? I contacted 2 other cities today. Joplin right now has 668 employees on their payroll, which compares to us, we have 730. Both of those numbers include full-time, part-time, seasonal employees, okay? So we have about 60 more employees than they do. In comparison to our 3.5 human resources employees, they have 5. So I think that's another thing to show our efficiency and effectiveness in our department. I also contacted Columbia. Columbia has about 2,100 employees on their payroll right now. Again, includes their full-time and part-time employees. So they have about 3 times the number of employees in their city. Their human resources department has 15 employees, and that does not include their risk management employees, which is something that we do handle within our human resources department. So they have about 4.5 times the number of employees that our department does. So I think that's just a testament to our staff and to our department that I really wanted to be able to point out to you guys tonight. As far as our budget, pink sheet items, I did get to participate in the budget process, which I appreciate Mr. Nicholas, including the department directors in that process. I believe that the budget is a fair budget. We did have 2 pink sheet items that were requested and were not funded, understandably in this tight economic time, but I would like to point them out. The first is a keyless door lock for the Human Resources file room. Our file room contains all of the information that we have on our employees. And it's kind of a closet in the administrative area. It's on a regular key lock. We go in the mornings and we unlock it, and before we leave in the evening, we lock it back up. It's only as secure as the people who are sitting there by the door. City Hall's been around a long time. Unfortunately, we really don't know exactly who has keys to that room and who doesn't. So what we'd really like to do is move to the door locks with the key cards that most of City Hall has. We have a lot of internal doors that would allow human resources staff to be able to go in and out during the day, and we could keep the door locked when we're not in there. And it would also give us a record of who exactly goes in and out of that room. So I think it'd be a great safety feature and an efficiency for us. The second item that we requested is an applicant tracking software. The cost of that's about $14,000. Our current program that we use is in the AS400. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of how old that program is, it is still a green screen. So you don't see many places working in green screens anymore. The program is no longer supported, so we do know that if it goes down, we will be completely out of an applicant tracking software. We do work completely with paper applications. We print off paper applications. We mail them out to people. People can go, it is on the website, so they can go and download one, or they can go on the web and they can enter their information into an application, but they then have to save it as an attachment and email it to us, and then we have to pull it up, print it off, and then manually data entry all the information into our green screen program. So it's just a very outdated program that requires a lot of time and attention and a lot of manual data entry. If we can go with one of these software programs, and there's a number of them out there that are great programs, they would actually link right into our website, so an employee could go and search for what jobs are available, and they could enter all of their information right into the system and then send it for that job position. It would pop up in our system. We would not have to data entry anything. And then once we've collected lists of applications, we could email that straight to managers and supervisors within the city, we don't even have to give them paper applications. They would be able to then pull them all up online also. Prospective employees, they could fill out an application. 2 or 3 months later, they see another position that they're interested with the city. They can go right back into that system. They don't have to enter all of their data over again. They can pull their information back up, and then they can submit it for another position. So it's something we really would like to move to. We've wanted to move to for a while, and budget's been tight, and we understand that, but we do want to throw it out that that is something that we've been working towards for a number of years. So. I guess really in closing, I just wanted to say that I totally understand how difficult a job you guys have in balancing the interests of the organization, the employees, and the citizens. It's not easy, and I appreciate what you do. I just want you to know we appreciate everything that you do for those 3 groups, and especially for the employees. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions? Mr. Hussey?
Just thank you. For a quick question on the software tracking for the applicant process. Do you have any idea or the ability to kind of calculate what the estimated savings would be in terms of, whether that be paper cost of copying, time? I mean, I know it's a $14,000 outlay, but my guess is over time there would be some savings or reallocation of staff to take on some functions maybe that we're not doing right now. Is that, do you have any idea on that, or?
I don't have any ideas, just offhand, but I'd certainly be willing to try to do some research on those. I know a lot of those companies will throw out a lot of numbers, and they say that you'll pay for that system within, 2.5 years on your efficiency. Printing costs alone, obviously, we're going to save time on. We probably get 2,000 to 3,000 applications a year, and every one of those, we are manually entering that person's information. And if you think about it, we're actually kind of double entering it because we also have to enter it into our payroll system. And a lot of these software programs would actually allow us to be able to transfer some of that information over. It could actually even save us time on that. So, but yeah, I'd be happy to try to find some information and get it to you.
Mr. Scrivener?
I would guess that you probably have at least $10 per application, and if you're doing 2,000 or 200 or 300, quick math, isn't that $20,000 or $30,000?
Yeah, we have 2,000 to 3,000 applications a year. So
3,000 times $10 is $30,000. So if in fact you're spending that much time, and that would, for the average employee, that's probably less than a half an hour. So there'd probably be a pretty quick payback for that, it would seem. But my question was, I was looking for the pink sheet on the automatic door lock, and I don't have one in here. How much did you say the cost of that was?
my understanding is it's about $2,000.
Is it that much? Okay, I guess while I was looking, you probably said, and I didn't hear you say.
Yeah.
But, so.
I have to say that's my fault then, because it didn't go, the original version that I sent to the mayor with all the pink sheets did not have theirs in it, and I had a later copy, and I may have given Bill the wrong set then.
Okay.
So I'll get you all a pink sheet on that.
I just want to say I didn't have one, and I was curious about what that cost might be. It does sound like a lot for a lock, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
All right, thank you.
While we're asking questions too, the council pages under the Human Resources tab, questions on pages 30 and 31 of the budget. Mr. Mihalovich.
To me, the software cost looks low and the door cost looks high. But I assume it has to integrate with all the other door locks and all that such. But anyway, for the cost of the software, does that include any hardware training? Is that the total cost of ownership and use? And will that have a reoccurring cost of maintenance, I assume?
It would. The $14,000 is all inclusive for the first year. That would include all of the setup, all of the, everything that we would need to get it to link with our website, that type of thing, the training, everything we would need. There is ongoing maintenance because it is a subscription. And So they would actually house everything, so it wouldn't take extra space on our server or anything like that. And the maintenance costs annually after that are probably running, depending on the company, between $5,000 and $7,000 a year.
One of the things trends are is for data entry to be done by the people who are actually applying for the job. So does it allow for a web interface or any of that so you don't have to retype? They type in the
Exactly.
information.
That's exactly what it would do. We would actually not accept applications at City Hall anymore. For people to apply, they would actually have to go online and complete it online, and you're right, that they would do all the data entry for us.
Mr. Scrivener?
I would assume for the convenience, and it's probably a moot point at this point, but for the convenience of applicants, I would assume you'd maybe have a terminal set up somewhere where someone could come here and enter their information through a terminal that we might have here.
Yes, we would. There's a couple of different ones we would have available for applicants. If they came in, they needed a place to fill one out, maybe they didn't have access at home, they'd be able to do it here at City Hall.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Carroll?
So we would be able to have the data, like some of the numbers, before we, I guess, would proceed too far. I mean, before the date of the next, not Monday, but the next Monday, I guess, that we're probably hoping to vote. Because it does seem like, even from Bob's calculations, it would pay for itself so quickly. But you'd be able to get those pretty
Sure.
quick. That'd be helpful.
Question, talking about payback, it's probably more the time that's spent in data entry would be offset, allowing the person who does that to do something else. I mean, from a cash standpoint of realizing actual dollars, we're not going to realize $20,000 or $30,000 in money. It's just the productivity piece that they could be doing something else. Is that correct?
That's true. The only really probably hard costs as far as money actually saved, other than productivity, would be a lot of the printing.
Mr. Scrivener?
You know, one of the things that I think you might be overlooking, and certainly I'm not trying to manage the departments or anything like that, but if for instance, you know, we've had a lot of voluntary people that have voluntarily left, and so we have some holes that maybe could need filling, and if this software actually allowed you, for instance, maybe to have 3 FTEs instead of 3.5 FTEs, or maybe 2.5, perhaps someone could go and fill a hole that was left by some folks leaving, and you know, you could reshuffle and actually realize some hard dollar savings to your department at least. And so, you know, we in considering that, you can't really overlook that aspect of it either. So,
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Turner, Fire Department.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, Council, I'd like to personally thank you for your time and the work that you do for the city. I do have a short presentation, but I do have a couple of comments I want to start off with. Over the past few months, I've been asked the same question over and over. How's the interim job working out for you? And my answer is simply the same. As long as I have the dedicated men and women that I have within my organization, my job is going to be easy. And I want to go on the record tonight and say the same about the other city departments. Without those departments, we wouldn't be able to do the job that we do. Whether it's the law department, the HR department, the administration, keeping us in line, giving us the direction that we need, the IT department, keeping us informed with the information that we have at our fingertips on a daily basis, the police department, the police chief working with us with the 911 system, our SWAT medics that provide care for their medics when they're deployed, as well as the Public Works, Parks Department, and the list goes on. We wouldn't be able to do our job if it wasn't for those departments. think you'll see in my presentation, I did take away one page that shows the overview of the budget. If you'll look at our budget, 95% of it is personnel costs, which leaves about, according to my calculations, about $350,000 for our normal operations day to day. I did a quick tally. I believe to open the doors every morning cost us just in salaries about $17,000 a day. As you can see, the department's authorized to have 77 and a half personnel. Currently, we have 72 people. Small little illustration there. Of course, the chief's position with 6 special inspectors that work closely with Miss McMillan and her department in doing plan reviews, and I got to give kudos to those guys because we've changed that in the last 3 or 4 months since the change in downstairs with Mr. Davenport's retirement, and I think we've got a heck of a system that's more efficient. We've spent a lot more time in plan review, and hats off. I think one of my inspectors is here, Captain Kevin Bagby. They spend a lot of time in making sure that those plans get out more efficiently and more timely. And of course, the vacant positions that we have within the department that you see there to the left, we have a division chief over trainings position that's vacant. Chief Pablo retired with the SIP program. 2 firefighters, they left during the SIP plan, and then the 1 support staff, which is a part-time position, but very helpful during our operation administration. And then, of course, my position serving now as the interim fire chief. Just a quick overview. In 2012, we responded to 4,232 incidents here in the city, which is an average of about 11 emergencies per day. Today, we're averaging about 9. Me and the mayor were just having a conversation right before the meeting started, and I think that's a trend. I think it's a trend that we follow yearly, is that we tend to be more busier September through the end of the year. So I look for that number to be pretty steady as what it has been in the past there with the 4,000 calls per year. What do we do with that $350,000 that I mentioned earlier, about 5% of our budget? We maintain 6 facilities, of course 5 of the stations and our Hyde Park facility where we do our training. And of course, we maintain 31 pieces of equipment, including our apparatus, and there's a list there for you. I'm not going to go into detail with that, but you can see there's quite a bit of responsibility there just in our fleet. So what was the department's budget? Of course, it was $6.9 million for the 2013-14. The one item that we did request in a capital improvement was an assistant chief's vehicle, and I think it's important just to describe that, you know, we do surplus those vehicles throughout, and we do get a full life expectancy out of those vehicles. As you can see, the vehicle that we would be replacing in the rotation is a 1999. We've adapted some new policies and procedures through the command staff, pulling back on our frontline apparatus when we respond to medical alarms, sending a Suburban instead. You know, for 99% of those calls that we respond to, which are medical alarms, are false alarms. So we're trying some cost-saving measures there, taking a smaller vehicle. So that does add up, you know, throughout the year, whatever that percentage is, and I don't have it with me. But when you take that away, that bottom number there is the remaining amount without the $45,000 that's the fire department's requested this year. In closing, my good friend, city attorney, made a comment the other night and referred to the employees as rock stars, and I would tend to agree 100%, but I would add one part to that if our employees are rock stars, they're at the top of their chart every day doing the job that we want them to do. And I say that for all the departments, not just the fire department. Of course, I'm biased to the fire department because we are good. And the men and women that we have within our organization are great people, but the other departments are just as important to our survival. That's all I have, and I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Turner, thank you for your presentation, and thank you and your staff for the work that you do in our city. As the council has questions for Mr. Turner, please be looking at pages 70 and 71 in your budget books. Mr. Scrivener.
Mr. Turner, I was interested in your comment about taking a smaller vehicle and in an attempt to hold down cost. I want to commend you for that. I'd be interested in knowing when you first implemented that.
We implemented that right after March 8th with the staff sitting down and talking about it. I want to go on the record and state that I don't necessarily support it 110% because it is a safety issue. Whenever we take a truck out of service to do something like that, it's taking away from what our frontline apparatus is designed to do. And I have to tend to agree with my predecessor's theory behind it is when we leave a call, we have our apparatus in those districts and those assigned run boxes, but they're able to respond to any type of emergency, just not one specific type. So do I agree with it 100%? Probably not. Is it working? We're still looking at that to see what the outcome is going to be. We work really close with central maintenance trying to determine what some of our fuel cost is, and Chief Barber and Chief Brandt both have spent a lot of time trying to collect that information. We hope, you know, when I talk about medical alarms, you know, it's a small percentage of calls, but, you know, when you look at responding a large truck like that over the year, it's going to add up. So it'd be a little premature to say that, you know, that it's a huge saving until we really had a lot of time behind looking at it.
Well, what I wanted to do is commend you for trying.
Thank you.
Because whatever the outcome is, whatever whatever final conclusion you reach, is not as important as the fact that you recognized a possibility, that it might work. I think sometimes we get hidebound in doing things the way we've always done things, and we're unwilling to think outside the box. And I commend you and your staff for thinking outside the box and being willing to try something.
Well, I appreciate that, and I do have to commend my command staff because without their hard work and dedication, we wouldn't have been able to put this type of plan in place.
And I also want to say, from a political standpoint, and whether we want to admit it or not, the council isn't the only ones that are subject to politics. The city staff are subject to public perception. And probably one of the biggest complaints that I get, second to the appearance that buses run empty, is that big fire trucks are taken to medical situations. So from a public perception, I think that shows some sensitivity to that as well. So again, whatever the outcome is what it'll be, but I commend you for trying it.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bray.
Jason, one of those, the fire department annually responds to 4,000 and some calls. And something I get asked from time to time, and this is the first opportunity or the first time I've thought to ask this.
Sure.
Of the fire, of you. How many of those emergency calls that you respond to are fire and versus what other emergencies?
I can tell you that looking this afternoon that about 59 to 62% of our calls right now are medical emergencies that we respond to. I would be happy to say that over the past couple of months we've worked really hard to make sure that we work with police chief staff, the EMS staff, in trying to respond to life-threatening emergencies. That doesn't always happen. There's going to be that call that comes through the crack that, we shouldn't respond to, but we don't know that until after we're there and determine that. When in doubt, I would rather respond to a life-threatening, non-life-threatening emergency and it not be anything than not respond to an emergency life-threatening call. So about 60% of those calls are medical calls. As far as fires, we probably in a year's time, just room and content, kitchen fires, things to that nature. I mean, what we would consider a really true working type fire is about, I'm going to just take a stab at it, about 150 to 200 of those a year. And of course, there's a wide variety of those as far as what our RMS system would actually put out as far as a building fire. So it's kind of vague. Outside of that, medical emergencies, we don't include. We run several motor vehicle accidents throughout the year and then other types of calls.
On the non-fire related but other emergencies, so you do differentiate between those that are emergency and non-emergency as best as possible?
We work really hard with the 911 operators and the Cole County EMS to try to separate those, which ones are actually life-threatenings and which ones are non-life-threatening.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Mr. Graham?
Mr. Turner, first of all, thank you for the service in which you all provide to the city. I do have a question in regards to the amount of vehicles that's taken home, and who are the, not for say the person, but the title of those individuals that take the cars, the trucks, wherever they take home.
Right now, there's 3 take-home vehicles within the fire department, myself and 2 assistant chiefs.
And I guess the 1999 vehicle, is that one of the ones that's being taken home now?
No,
or
that is actually, in the slide, the station vehicles, each station has some type of smaller vehicle assigned to it, whether it's one of the vehicles that we've rotated through or one of the pickups that we use as brush trucks. So each one of the stations has one of those vehicles. And I'll remind you that with the great cooperation of the street department, some of those vehicles also serve the responsibility of plowing our own snow to all 6 of our facilities, and we actually try to pitch in and help as much as we can around here at City Hall, making sure the 911 operators can get out during those bad weather conditions.
And so I guess the new vehicle is going to cost roughly around $45,000.
And that would have replaced the current assistant chief's vehicle, which is I stated last week, I believe, that was slated to be traded out last year and rotated through the stations. I believe that vehicle is 3 years old and 1 year over its, I believe it's 4 years old.
How many miles does that vehicle have on it?
I would venture to say that somewhere, I believe last year it was right at 50,000 when we were talking about replacing it.
Okay.
The vehicle that is at Station 4 today, the 99, it doesn't have quite 100,000, but it's starting to, as we refer to it with central maintenance, starting to nickel and dime us.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Turner, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Next, Mr. Betts, Finance.
I'm going to stay here. I have a presentation. I'm doing IT and finance, and if the council doesn't mind, I'll do non-departmental at the same time Mr. Nicholas asked me to talk about non-departmental. I'm going to start out with just the IT department and just tell you what our mission statement is. The Department of Information Technology's mission is to establish and refine an information technology structure which increases the ability of city departments to deliver quality, cost-effective services and systems to the residents of Jefferson City. Basically, what I tell our staff all the time, and we all believe, is that we don't have a job if there aren't fire department, police department, public works department, law department, HR department. We're here to support them. That's our job. We're here to support the city departments and provide for them a service. So when you look at our budget, we're a little different than a lot of departments in that we don't have quite as big of a personnel services cost, and we have a lot of other things. Our personnel services constitutes about 67% of our budget. But the next big item on there is about 22%, and that's for repairs and maintenance. We maintain all of the city software, all the city computers, whether they're in the police cars, city servers. About 90% of the phone system is maintained by the IT department. It's not done by the local phone company. We handle that ourselves. So we have contracts and service agreements and those types of things that take care of that. Our one utility cost in there is for telephone and radio lines. It constitutes about 5% of our budget. Again, something that we just maintain for everyone in the city. So for the radio lines for police and fire and those types of things, we have to keep a contract to keep those types of things up to date. So our budget, for the most part, is more about even our capital purchases. I think we're the one department that actually has a capital purchase in it, and that's for city computers. And we've cut that in half the last couple of years. Just because of the budget constraints and those types of things. They're not computers for the IT department, but they are computers for the entire city. And then we try to keep them on a 5 to 6 year rotation is how often we try to rotate a computer out. Typically our maintenance agreements are 3 to 4 years, and then we go 2 years after that with them in service, and then we kind of start to think that they've either lost the horsepower that you need to run the applications that we do, or they begin to have power supplies go out or motherboards, those types of things. So that's a little bit about the IT department. I'll talk about the finance department here real quick. The thing is, I read the finance department's mission statement. I'd never read it until recently, and similarly they talk about, their job is to function is to provide services for city departments. But I'll just read it. It's to promote and ensure financial integrity and the accountability of the city to its citizens for the expenditure of funds and safeguarding of public assets. Provide the financial support needed by departments and activities of the city to deliver their services. When I first started working with the finance folks, it was a very similar conversation. I told them the same thing. Again, the finance department is here to support the other departments. We do have a little bit of forward-facing or public-facing things where we handle wastewater billing and business licenses and liquor licenses, but as a whole, we're here to help all the different departments and make sure that they have the things that they need in order to do their financial work, that things are being done in an accurate manner. It's been several years, and I don't know the exact number of years that they've gotten a clean audit finding through all the hard work of the folks in the finance department. We received the same thing again this year. So it's a very good thing, and that is the job. And I mean, a lot of the credit, I would say majority of the credit goes to the finance staff there. The accountants of the past, the accountants that we have today. I think everyone knows Sheila. You might not know Kara. Kara is the lady when you hear us refer to the other accountants regularly. That's Kara. She's the lady sitting next to Sheila. And then they have about 7 other ladies that work with them. And then we have our purchasing, 2 ladies in purchasing that work with us. And so they try to make sure that we follow all the rules and obligations and offer a fair purchasing environment there as well. The difference between finance and IT, though, is the fact that a majority of what they do is personnel services. I mean, that's 93% of their budget is that, because they're here just to kind of make sure that the money coming in, the money going out is done accurately. The bids that come in are done, efficiently, that we're not cheating anybody, that we're not doing those kind of things. Other than that, they have their contractual services is for the city audit. You take away that, they run the rest of their department on about 4% of their budget is what they do there with the finance department. So that's the IT and finance department. And I'm just going to talk real quick about non-departmental, and then I'll entertain any questions if you don't mind. But I don't have a slide for non-departmental. Non-departmental is exactly that. It's just money that goes to things that are not related to any specific department. So one of the things we changed this year, and I think why Mr. Nicholas asked me to do this presentation, was we have the vacancy savings and SIP program. You'll find 2 negative numbers under personnel services in the non-departmental on page 39. And what those tell you is those numbers are negative, and on November 2nd, if not November 1st, but on November 2nd, once the budget goes into effect, we will sweep out money from each of the departments that you've seen the list for SIP and vacancy savings, but we will sweep money out of each of those line items, and we will zero out both of those line items. That's how we're accounting for it. It helps us to understand exactly. I think in the years past, the question always was, well, you guys say you have vacancy savings, you say you have SIP, you need to show us those numbers. This is where we're showing you the numbers. I can run a report, and I'm happy to do so, or Sheila will be happy to do so, or whatnot. But on November 2nd, we should be able to run a report for this particular budget, and that line item should be 0 for those 2 line items, the one that says vacancy savings and the one that says separation incentive program. And that's kind of our goal. We know what that list of people are. Or the list of positions are. We've sent that to the council. Other areas that are in here and some things that have changed is in the past we handled a majority of gas, oil, and antifreeze out of the non-departmental line item. It's something we changed this year, and I think we told the council this before, and the reason we changed it was to give a more accurate indication of how much money was being spent in each department for these types of services. There is a little bit of money left in here for gas, oil, and antifreeze. It's about $19,000. We actually handle the housing authority's gas, oil, and antifreeze. So we pay that. They pay us back. There is a revenue line item from the housing authority for $17,000, and then there's $2,000 of admin type costs. There's an admin vehicle, so to speak, in the city. It's a van. So there's $2,000 that goes to gas, oil, and antifreeze for that particular vehicle as it's needed. Otherwise, I can go through each line item if you'd like, but I think most of the council has seen a lot of these before. But you get down into contractual services, and you have the chamber and the legislative person, the person who goes over to the legislator for us. You have the assessor's contract there. Utilities, a majority of those utilities that you'll find are related to City Hall, paying the electricity, the natural gas, water, and some of our other buildings that aren't related to any specific department, like the church, some of those types of things. Repairs and maintenance, the buildings and grounds similarly is for the City Hall area, and then some of the other smaller buildings that we have around there. And then on the next page, on page 40, you have other operating expenses. One of the big line items that we added this year was the contingency fund. Typically, for the most part, other operating expenses is pretty negligible, but the contingency fund is a bigger line item this year. In your book, it says 72,000. I believe with all the changes we've made over the last several weeks, that number's down to 79,000 and some change there in the book. So that is the three departments that I'm here to speak on tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Bill, thank you, and I would just like to take a minute to thank you and your staff for all the hard work with this year's budget, the budget book, the way it's put together, all the detail that is provided for us to look at, the format that it's in. You've given us the tools that we need to be able to evaluate the budget, and so we appreciate all of your hard work and efforts. So thank you. Mr. Henry.
And this question is probably maybe more for Nathan. With the vacancy savings and non-departmental, I noticed what your proposed budget was compared to the mayor's. I guess what did you see there? What did you see there as far as maybe what the mayor did? And why is that such a bigger difference?
Well, the difference is exactly $130,000, and that represents the finance director's position. I did not recommend refilling that position at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Prather?
Under a non-departmental deductible, it went from 19,000, almost 20,000 to 30,000. I know there's a good explanation. It's kind of, can you explain to us what that is and why the increase?
I think you're talking about the
insurance deductible. Yeah, the insurance deductible. What that's for is we have a $5,000 fee, and in the past we had the numbers switched around. On the revenue side, we had it higher, and on the expense side, we had it lower. And what we've recognized is that we needed to turn those numbers around, so we raised that number up to 30,000. So if there's an accident that occurs that's up to $5,000, the city has to cover that cost before the insurance kicks in. So we have a lot of vehicles, whether it's buses or big public works vehicles and police vehicles and fire trucks. I mean, we just have a lot of vehicles on the road, so there are accidents from time to time, and we have to cover that. So until it hits the $5,000 threshold, our insurance does not pay that. So if you had 6 major accidents, that would cover that amount. So hopefully we don't have that many, but if we did, there you go.
Mr. Mihailovich?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Number one is I see Salute to America as half of the amount that we've had in the past. It seems to me that it was typically a $10,000 budget, now it's $5,000. As I remember,
He's on page 40.
Excuse me, it's page 40?
Yes.
Seems like I remember we lowered it to 5,000, but then we found another 5 to fund it to 10,000. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct.
So, for us to fund it to the level that it was in the past, we'd need to have 10,000 there.
Well, what we did last year was we funded it at 5,000, and we found another 5,000 from another area that hadn't been all completely spent. We may be able to do that again, but and of course we can add it to the budget, but we funded it back at what was actually funded before.
Mr. Bright? Sorry.
Bill, the contingency is what's the difference between the contingency and fund balance?
Yeah, the difference is that if we wanted to put money in the fund balance, there's a line item up underneath revenue, and it's transfer to fund balance. And what we would do there is we would say that the city's absolutely, the plan is that we would just move money directly into fund balance. What the contingency is allowing us to do is it gives a little bit more freedom, so to speak, for the city administrator. So if a $3,000 line item came up that we weren't aware of, or something happens, he could. That's an area where he could find that. Or if something came in at if insurance came in at a higher rate, like the general insurance liability came in a little bit higher, we had more accidents or whatnot, there would be money there. Basically, what we've the thought on the contingency is that we've kind of tried to tighten the budget as tight as we could in all the areas. I mean, whether we got them all, I don't know, but we narrowed it down, and so it left some flexibility there for us to, if we missed the boat on something there. So if you move it to fund balance, then any item, so if we needed $3,000, we'd have to come back to the council and ask for a supplemental appropriation. One of the things that we did talk about with the mayor on the contingency line item was that if anything, if the city administrator spent money out of there, if he moved money out of there to a different line item, he would send a memo to the council and inform them that he needed to move money. It wouldn't require a vote of the council unless it was a bigger number, but I'll use the insurance line item again, if we exceeded that and we needed $35,000, he could let the council know, I moved $5,000 from the contingency fund over to there. Not something that needs to come in front of the council. If we transferred it to fund balance, then we'd have to bring that before the council again.
All right. I'm going to go to IT.
Okay.
In IT, what's the difference in training and education versus tuition?
The difference there between the two is tuition. We have a couple of employees that are going to college to get their master's degrees in different things, so that's for their tuition reimbursement. Every department has a tuition reimbursement line item. Training and education is for when they go for training and education that we feel is directed towards their jobs, so the jobs that they do for us here at the city.
Without looking, I haven't looked myself, but it's something I'd be interested in. In this particular budget year, is the tuition reimbursement increasing or decreasing citywide?
I don't know that I have the answer for that. We could get that for you, but I don't know that I have the answer for you on that right now.
What is the tuition reimbursement looked at annually?
I think each department, as we did it this year, what happened was each department came to Nathan or Mr. Nicholas and asked him for, I know that these are the employees that I have going. We have a personnel policy on what tuition reimbursement is for the city. I mean, how it's funded. It's in our personnel policy manual. And so they brought it to Nathan or Mr. Nicholas and asked him for the amount of money that they thought they were going to need for their employees to have that tuition reimbursement.
Would that be considered a tuition reimbursement? Would that be considered a employee benefit?
I think so, yes.
Okay. It sounds like a nice program.
Yes.
Let's see. That was IT. Yeah, thank you there. I want to go to non-departmental special events. Can you provide some specificity as to what falls under special events?
I believe I'm going to...
Specificity would be the operative word there.
I do know some of the things, but I know that Miss Perry will have more of them right in front of her screen there, so I'm going to ask her if she would mind. Oh, okay. Sorry. Didn't mean to call on her.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Not to put Sheila on the spot, but I have a question that could maybe fill in the gap of time here, if you would allow me to do that.
Yep.
I'm going back to what Mr. Councilman Mahalovich said as far as Salute to America. It was my understanding that Salute to America was remaining at $10,000 and not being cut. And I refer back to a memo from our city administrator at the beginning of your budget packet that says just that current funding was staying at 10,000. At one time in our talks, I'd looked at maybe about changing it depending on where our budget was at, but I don't recall making that change at all. So I would assume it should still be at 10,000.
Well, I think I can respond to the mayor's point there. I think when Nathan's budget came out, that the intention was for it to be 10,000, but we had moved it back to 5 as part of FY13 2.0. I hate to say where we found the money in FY13 because I can't remember exactly, but it's either out of special. I believe it's in special events was where the other $5,000 came.
That was one of the reasons I brought it up now. Is that I was thinking maybe some of the 12,000 might be Salute to America.
I believe you're correct. So
I'm not. I can't remember for sure. Been a few numbers since then, Bill, but
no doubt.
But I do know as last year's chair of Salute, it wasn't my intention to cut it.
Okay, so in the special events, this has been, I'm looking at 2012 fiscal year. It contained purchases for chamber gala tickets for council. It includes employee recognition lunch and awards. It has historically contained the employee Christmas party. It also included things that related to the JC Submarine Committee, if we had plaques or things like that made on behalf of the city. We also had the mobile app contest that was included in this area last year. And that's pretty consistent with what it's had over time.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mihalovich, I cut you off a while ago. I apologize.
Shouldn't have paused. Another 50% cut is the Cultural Arts Commission, and I'll have a liaison report Monday to report the good things that that commission is doing. Could you help me out on the Old Town Redevelopment Corporation under the budget provided by the mayor, and the defunding of that, and the additional funding of the new neighborhood incentive program? Is that in non-departmental? And if it is, could you show me? The numbers weren't quite adding up for me, so I needed help.
Yeah, I actually believe it's in planning and protective services is where that is. So if I think Ms. McMillan goes next, so if you want, if she can either talk about it now or if you want to have her answer it when it's her presentation time. So.
Okay, so on tuition reimbursement, it looks like in the current budget, there's a budget of $27,780, and in the 2013 budget, the budget is listed as $21,480.
In the current budget, how far into that are we? How much of that was in the year 13, fiscal year 13? How much of that has been spent, or obligated, or?
That's the budget amount, not the actual. That's budget amount, not actual.
For actual, the figure is $8,700 at this point.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mihalovich?
Yes, thank you. One last question on the IT budget. Am I to understand that departmental purchases for computers come out of your budget?
For all general fund departments, that's correct.
Okay. So, very well. Thank you.
Mr. Graham?
In regards to, on page 40, when I look at contingency and then I look at other operating expenses, and I see both of those have increased to the tune of roughly $70,000 on each line item. Help me to understand that, because
the other operating expenses is a total.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is the first one. There's the city administrator's proposed. The one you're seeing, that's 68,000 for the total, and then the other one is the mayor proposed of 140. Right, which the mayor had. The mayor's recommendation with his budget was to move that number up to 122,000 from the 50 that the city administrator had initially proposed.
Mr. Scrivener?
I guess I'm probably more interested where there are cuts, and like for instance on special events, what are the items that are being cut, or has that been determined yet? Is that still yet to be determined?
That would be yet to be determined.
Okay. And also, I noticed here that, and we've had some conversation about this before, but one of the items that's cut in non-departmental is a tree and landscape maintenance. It's been, I know it was cut earlier as a response to 2.0, I think we're referring it to now. But we're proposing that same 25,000 next year, and it appears that our ongoing expense has been somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 or so, maybe a little less, 45. What's our plans for for that program? How are we going to reconcile the difference in the cost?
Well, the plan that we're recommending is that, and this is actually something that kind of predates the budget things, but the budget seemed like a good time to actually finally make that move, is to eliminate that program. Right now, we maintain people's trees that happen to be in the right-of-way that are in their lawns. And the fact of the matter is that that's just prohibitively expensive. The liability of that greatly exceeds what we have ever budgeted for it. Every year, we have gone over the budget, and the Parks Department has picked up the difference. And as you may recall, a couple of years ago, we had to pay them quite a bit to try and reconcile that, at least in part. There is more work there to do than what the city can afford to do. And so our recommendation is we did not used to always do that. That program has only existed for I don't know, maybe 20 years, maybe less, since we created the forestry program in the Parks Department. And so what we would recommend is going back to the way that we did it in the past, which is that everyone takes care of their own trees.
So shouldn't perhaps this line item be zeroed out as opposed to having an amount in it? Or is that amount in there to take care of city trees?
It's to take care of city trees and the downtown trees, and then also occasionally trees that fall directly, onto the street and need emergency action.
So there needs to be some amount in that fund.
Right, but we will not do trimming of people's trees anymore.
But is that something that's going to be announced? Is that something that we're just going to handle on a case-by-case basis? Or do most people in the city expect the city to take care of those trees, or do they understand that those trees are their responsibility?
Well, I think it's mixed. I think most people do not expect the city. What happens every year is about June of each year, we run out of money and just simply do it only on a very, limited basis after that. And so most people kind of come to expect that it's not going to get done. There have been occasions when people have called and asked us to do it, but it's just something that we would just simply stop doing. It's a service we would no longer provide.
Well, I did ask a couple of people in the third ward, just out of curiosity, what their reaction would be, and both of them that I talked to said, well, they expected to take care of their own trees anyway. So I guess I was a little surprised at that reaction, but probably not, considering who I asked. I had made a mark next to special events, but I think that's been answered. I have a mark next to contingency, that's been answered. Salute to America, that's been answered. So I guess my questions have been answered.
Additional questions? And just so we follow the kind of the same procedure that we have, run through these real quick. Non-departmental, pages 39 and 40. Any questions? Additional questions? Information Technology Services, page 42 and 43. Mr. Hussey.
Just a question. I noticed the salary line item went up from 519 and budget 2.0 and 13 up to 551. Any explanation as to what specifically that is? Oh, page 42, the IT salary line item.
Mr. Scribner?
On software license maintenance, I noticed that 2012 end year balance was $185,000. We spent $148,000 year to date, and we have a budget of $207,000. Do you expect to come in 2013 within budget?
I do expect to come in within budget, yes.
And then for 2014, we have a $220,000 proposed amount. I'm familiar enough with software license agreements to know that they do nothing but go up. But can we expect that kind of an increase from now on, year after year, you think? Or I know we're doing more and more, but is there a point where it kind of levels off?
That's a tough question to answer. I'd like to say yes, but as you said, it does continue to go up as we buy more and more software and have more and more software. And each year, we try to keep the vendors at a specific level, but we're kind of at their mercy for some of those types of things. So,
Is there any consideration given when Gail was talking earlier about a software package, and relative to the cost, it seemed like the maintenance was extremely high. $14,000 to purchase it and $7,000 to maintain it seemed kind of out of whack. Is there any consideration given to, when you're looking at packages, maybe at what the ongoing cost might be, as well as the functionality? Functionality is most important, but
Right, there is. It's our goal always when we buy a new software package to make sure that the purchase price and then the maintenance fee is somewhere around 15% ongoing. Obviously, then that goes up 2, 3, 5% depending on the vendor each year. What we've done in contracts in recent years is we've kind of locked them into a CPI or 5%, whichever is the least that they can go up on an annual basis. So we do consider that. There's been very few occasions when we've not negotiated it to at least the 15% for ongoing maintenance and then the increase, but for the most part that is our goal whenever we do those types of things. Just to give you, for instance, the most expensive and probably the most important software packages that we have is our CAD 911 package. It's also about half of our budget for our maintenance, if you want to know, and that's for fire and records management and police and fire, and then the CAD dispatching for police. So it's a very expensive package, but it was a very expensive package for the city to buy and install at the time that we did that. So just that gives you kind of an idea of what's in those line items there.
there's a fairly significant jump, it appears, in repairs and maintenance. You might have already addressed this, but I don't recall you saying, but again, 182,000 in 2013 year to date. 2012 had an ending balance of 196, and then we're going to jump to about 260 in 2014. That's a $80,000, well, not quite 80,000, about $70,000 increase. Can you explain why
Sure.
such a big increase?
Yep, I can. Part of that is the software that we talked about, the software maintenance there. And then as well as that is hardware maintenance. The city, about 6 years ago now, purchased a new phone system that also included all routers and switches for the city. At the time, we were paying roughly, just in the general fund, about $130,000 a year for our telephone service. If you look in the line item budget now for telephone, which is just in our budget, it's only 60. Wastewater, parks, and all of those also had a decrease, but we have to maintain those routers and switches. We actually keep a maintenance agreement with Cisco. We have Cisco equipment. We keep maintenance agreements. So about 25 to 30,000 of that. I don't know the exact number of that increase was for that. So between software and our hardware maintenance, those are two of the bigger jumps. I think they probably account for 90% of that.
Okay, thank you. I guess one other quick question. Any chance, routers have become almost commodities. You can go buy a router or go buy, probably not the kind of routers you use, but you can go buy routers and so forth at pretty inexpensively compared to what they used to cost. Are you seeing those hardware costs come down any?
For us, not the kind that we buy. No, we don't see that cost go down any. We don't typically. We've tried not to buy any since that big purchase. We have 17 buildings now that we maintain, so we pay roughly $25,000 to $30,000 for maintenance on all 17 buildings' equipment. In police and city hall, it's also big phone management switches that are included in that as well. So, it's about 8% of what our purchase price was to keep the maintenance on them. So, and the maintenance typically doesn't increase, we've noticed with that. So at some point we'll have to start purchasing new equipment because they will burn out. But I think right now we feel pretty comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nicholas, did you have a comment?
Well, I was going to brag on Bill just a little bit. One of the things that I've done is I've required all my department directors that every software license that they get has to be approved by the IT department, and I don't sign off on that contract until I see Bill's signature on it. And I will just say that I would describe him as ruthless. I can think of 2 or 3 occasions when I've sat in his office on a telephone conference with the president of some software company. For some reason, they always seem to bring in the president. I guess that's supposed to impress us. And Bill reads them the Riot Act and says, your cost, for maintenance is too high. It's above the industry average. I won't pay it. And he has walked away from contracts and refused to approve them because their maintenance was too high.
Good.
Thank you. Mr. Mihalovich.
Now, I assume that you're taking on the cost of all the departments in terms of computers and the software licensing, right, for the entire city?
That's correct.
Okay.
Like wastewater has their own software for running their big thing, and they pay that, and then Parks pays their software maintenance for their stuff. But for anyone who's general fund related, police, fire, any of the general fund departments, we take on all of those types of costs.
So if we were to try to determine the full cost of, like, operating the 911 center, we'd have to account for those items that are coming out of your budget as well.
That's probably fair, yes.
Follow-up, it seems to me that Fire Station 3 had a hardened data center. Am I mistaken on that?
That is correct.
Do we have any dollars in here for infill of that?
We actually have most of the equipment at a different location. It's not nearly as secure as Fire Station 3, or I would say where it is, but we do actually have a majority of the equipment that we need to move into Fire Station 3. And then we have some money set aside in sales tax F for any of the things that we think we're going to need on top of that.
Mr. Graham, did you have a? Nope. Any other questions? IT, Mr. Scribner.
I guess this is personal. Maybe I shouldn't even ask this, but I'm curious if you are pursuing, Bill, you probably don't have time. I think we occupy most of your day, but are you pursuing any ongoing certifications? I think that's something that you'd indicated an interest in a career path. Are you having any time to do that?
Me and Mr. Nicholas actually had this conversation about a month ago. I have been considering going back to school to get my MPA and those types of things. I'll leave. There's a decision that has to be made for me to make that decision whether or not that's a right move for me or not.
I was just curious if there was any money in the budget to help you with that.
There is, as part of the IT.
That was the purpose of my question.
Tuition reimbursement.
Okay. Any other questions for IT specifically? Okay, how about finance, pages 35 and 36? 35 and 36 for finance. Any questions? Okay, Mr. Betts, thank you. Next, Mrs. McMillan, Planning and Protective Services.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Planning and Protective Services has 5 service groups: Transportation Planning, which is the MPO, Capital Area MPO, Planning, Current Planning, Zoning Administration, and Development Review. Inspection, which includes building regulations, property maintenance, and existing housing. And the Environmental Health Division, which includes food service inspection, contract administration. And then lastly, redevelopment and grants, and that includes the city incentive program, CDBG entitlement program, and the administration of miscellaneous grants. Our total operating budget is about $2.1 million. We have 19 full-time equivalents authorized in our department. 18 are filled. 1 is currently participating in the SIP program. Our operating budget also includes 2 annual grants, the MPO grant and our CDBG entitlement grant. As for the divisions, you all know Eric Barron. He's our senior planner. He is the division manager for the current planning division. He's in charge of coordinating neighborhood planning, development review in coordination with the Public Works Department and the Fire Department, zoning administration, annexation, and he also staffs Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment. On an annual basis, we process about 70 applications per year, 120 administrative review, and that includes site plans, subdivisions, about 50 compliance letters, and Eric tells me he gets about 1,500 phone calls, inquiries, walk-ins, and emails a year asking zoning questions and development processes. Our next division, the MPO Transportation Planning Division, that's the one that includes the federal grant. This year, or next year actually, our program amount will be $185,250, and that's currently on the council's agenda to approve this program for fiscal year 14. Sonny Sanders was recently promoted to be the MPO program manager for our operation. And the Capital Area MPO, as you know, is the official transportation planning organization for the Jefferson City urbanized area. Our planning area was recently expanded to include Taos and Wardsville. So now we have 6 cities and 2 counties that we service in transportation planning. That includes, the administration part includes a board of directors comprised of elected officials and senior staff, and also a technical committee comprised of planning staff, engineers, and other agency representatives. Our planning partners include, in addition to the 6 counties and 2 counties and 6 cities, Missouri Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and other state agencies. One of the things about this budget, it's smaller than the previous year's budgets. We don't have any outside contracts this year. It's all basically staff supported work this year, or in 14. The next division, redevelopment and grants. That includes 2 sections operationally. In your budget, the 530 budget is basically the city side of the program. The 149 budget is the CDBG entitlement program. And Jamie Abbott was hired this year to be our neighborhood services coordinator. His primary function is to support reinvestment in the city's core. She's also providing some support for the city incentive programs. You know them as the Old Town incentive programs, and that includes a facade improvement program for commercial areas, and support for redevelopment of downtown lofts, adaptive reuse, and a down payment assistance program, and a tax reimbursement program for residential. She's also been supporting and staffing the CDBG program, Community Development Block Grant. Lauren Henry is also a half-time employee in that program. And the other programs that Jamie administers include the other HUD programs, Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Missouri State Penitentiary Grant, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, and the Hazard Mitigation Program. You'll be hearing more about the Community Development Block Grant Program over the next few weeks as we come to the Council for approval of the consolidated plan for next year. The inspection division is a large division. The total operating budget for that division is almost $700,000. That currently does include the salary of the now retired division director. It's the 2 service groups in that division include the building regulation side. That includes a building inspector, and Glenn Miller, our building inspector, is here this evening. It also includes a plumbing inspector and electrical inspector. In 2012, we collected $540,000 in fees, and that, of course, does include the St. Mary's Health Center project. And the fees do pay for a significant portion of the salaries and operational portion of this budget. One thing I'd like to call your attention to in this particular budget, the prior year's budget included a line for professional services, and that has now been broken down into 2 areas, one for demolitions and one for abatements. As you know, we do quite a number of dangerous buildings in a year. So we'd like to continue to be able to do that. We'll probably be able to do about 2 per year with an average cost of $10,000. Then we also do a number of abatements, and I think the line item for that is about $15,000. That includes board ups and weeds and trash removal. The other part of the inspection division is the property maintenance and nuisance abatement program. And we're currently monitoring about 111 abandoned buildings, or buildings that meet that definition. In the landlord registration area, 584 landlords representing 1,380 properties have been identified. That division also takes care of about 3,600 complaints and property inspections per year. And we do about 70 to 80 what we call abatements in a year. The staff for that program is David Grellner. He's the environmental services manager. He's putting in some time assisting in the management of that program, along with Dan Davis, our senior housing inspector. And lastly, environmental health, and David Grellner is primarily responsible for the management of this division and program. They promote environmental health and safety through education and application of health regulations. They conduct about almost 800 food service inspections per year. They also manage several of the large city contracts, including the compost site and the cemetery maintenance. The recycling programs are also housed in this division budget, including the household hazardous waste programs, the glass recycling, the large bins that you see around town, and also promoting education for recycling and sustainability. And Adopt a Spot and Adopt a Street programs are also in this area. And Lauren Henry's also represented about 50% in this particular budget. As far as our pink sheets that you might have seen in your PPS program packet, we've asked for the reclassification of one position, and I understand HR is in the process of reviewing and analyzing the job requirements in order to do that. And then the mosquito spraying program was suspended in 2013 due to budget constraints, and so that has not been included in the FY14 budget. And I would like to say that we appreciate very much, our department very much appreciates the support of the council. We enjoy doing your work, reviewing your plans to help make our city strong and healthy, supporting neighborhoods. And I have to say that since Ron Davenport's retirement, it's allowed most of us to expand our wings a little bit and get involved in things that we hadn't been involved with before. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to get more involved with code enforcement and with the building regulations division. They do an outstanding job. They have a hard job to do, and they do it very well, and they're very effective at what they do. And also in closing, I appreciate our city administrator, Mr. Nicholas, for allowing us to modify our budget a little bit to take care of some things that I feel are important, and specifically identify those areas such as an area for cemetery restoration. That's one particular area that I know that you'll agree needs a little bit of attention, and we hope that we're able to keep those programs. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mrs. McMillan, thank you, and thank you and your staff for all that you do for our city. Questions? Mr. Bray.
Janice, the mosquito spraying program, what would be the cost, and how would that program be run? That is,
we have operated it in the past with seasonal employees. It's a seasonal program operating in the summer and into the fall. So for about 6 months out of the year, seasonal employees are hired to conduct the spraying. And it's about a little under $20,000 price tag to be able to do that, to pay those seasonal employees, purchase the chemicals, and to pay the vehicle expense associated with that program.
And they go through residential neighborhoods, I guess?
Pardon me?
They go through residential neighborhoods?
They do.
And in the daytime or the evening?
A little bit of both. We've had daytime spraying, and then we've also had the fogger truck that operates at night.
Last year in 2012, the summer, we didn't have much moisture, but gosh, this year we're ahead of the yearly average. I guess such a program would be more critical this year, wouldn't it?
Well, actually, the way that David Grellner explains it to me, that when there are periods of regular rain, it actually flushes it out, and so the mosquito larvae don't have an opportunity to develop. So this year was really a pretty good year to cease that program because we didn't have a lot of complaints because we had regular rain. And 2012, we had a little bit different situation, so we really needed it in 2012.
Okay, well, that was, boy, that helped me out. I thought quite the different of it. A couple other questions. You mentioned the MSP grant. What does the MSP grant accomplish?
It is for, it's actually a program that we're assisting the Office of Administration. We had to be the grantee because the state couldn't be its own grantee, apparently. So we're assisting with the demolition of those, of certain buildings, according to the plan. The next step is to do the historic recordation of some of the buildings, and so we're in the process of getting a consultant to do that.
And the abandoned buildings program, I think you said 111 buildings?
Yes.
Maybe something? Can you offer some examples representative of the success of that program?
Yes, we have had a few buildings that have been, as I understand it, we've had one building that's been torn down. Seven have been repaired, and I think we've had one that's dropped off the list because the property owner agreed to, I guess you could include that in the repairs. So we're continuing to work with the remaining. All have received the first notice. Some, of course, don't want to pay the registration fee of $44 and a $32 monthly administrative fee. So we are in the process of pursuing those who refuse to register in municipal court.
Are you satisfied with the tools you have for the program?
Yes, I think so. Like any program, it takes a little time to get the processes worked out, but I think we are well on our way to doing that, and once we get a couple of through municipal court, we may be a little more convincing in our arguments for registration.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Scrivener?
Janice, you mentioned that you would want to tear down about 2 buildings a year. Are those buildings that we have acquired? Are those buildings that we're tearing down and tax billing the owner?
They're typically tax liens or they're fire damaged and the owner is unable to take care of the demolition.
So typically is the city, is that something the city is kind of like a middleman? We do it and then the owner ends up paying for it, or does that come out of city funds generally?
It comes out of city funds until someone buys the property and repays the lien.
So, and I would assume that, I don't know what the cost of demolition is, but I would assume there might be cases where that bill may be more than that lot's worth, perhaps, or probably never.
Sometimes.
Occasionally. Okay, I guess it depends on the size of the building. And then the other thing, I'd really be interested in maybe you giving us a little synopsis of, I know you've told me individually, one-on-one, that you feel like you have a good plan and you're coping with the retirement of Ron, and I know that, you know, that was 25% of your workforce in that particular area, and a very experienced, long-time employee. how are you, what's your plan for coping with that? And do you have it, I don't think there's any money in the budget for a replacement, is there?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Well, basically, we've divided up the workload between, between four of us, myself, David Grellner, Dan Davis, and Glenn Miller. Glenn Miller, our building inspector, is taking care of the new construction, plan review, permitting, inspection. Dan Davis is taking care of the demolitions, the existing housing, working with the fire department and police department on cases that they want some assistance with. And then David Grellner and I are sharing some of the code enforcement responsibilities.
And
Property
that,
maintenance.
do you see that as a long-term solution, or do you think that is a situation that you can maintain and feel comfortable that you're providing an adequate level of service?
I believe we're providing a very high level of service, and I think it's a short-term solution to a short-term problem. I wouldn't want to continue it forever, but I think in the next budget year for FY14, we're perfectly capable of handling the situations that come up with the staff that we have.
So you're comfortable with it for a full year?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, Mrs. McMillan, thank you.
Thank you.
And let's move through the tabs on in the PPS, and we'll go through administration first, and if we have some other questions for Mrs. McMillan. Under administration for PPS, pages 78, 77, and 78. Any questions? Pages 77 and 78. Okay, seeing none, under the planning tab, pages 81 and 82. Specific questions, 81 and 82. Okay, next tab, MPO, pages 85 and 86. 85 and 86. Next tab, redevelopment and grants. Yes, sir.
I do have one question, and I think she may have already answered this, but it's the first time that I've actually, this number jumped out at me. The professional services, it looks like it was a one-year situation, and you probably explained this in your synopsis, but on page 85, there's a $98,000 ending balance on professional services. Line item 522020. What is, where did that go? Or what was it spent on? It's on page 85, about the middle of the page, in the 2012 ending balance column.
Oh, yeah.
Has that been spread through something else? Or?
I'm not sure why it shows up as an ending balance. We did have a $98,000 contract with a consultant for transportation modeling. So I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I think ending balance that's just the actual amount that was probably spent there. So when it says 98,000, that's how much was spent. There wasn't 98,000 left over. I think that was, so it's probably the contract that Janice is referring to there.
Okay, and so that was just kind of a one-time thing, or at least...
It was a one-time thing, right. Every 5 years when we update our transportation, our metropolitan transportation plan, we have to also have a transportation modeling, travel demand modeling. It estimates the amount of traffic on all of the streets and highways, and that's what this contract did. It was a professional services contract with a company to do that travel demand modeling.
Okay, so, and I was just wondering if it was something that had been classified there last year and now this year it had been spread out somewhere else. I would just.
I see.
So I want to make sure that wasn't the case.
In about 4 more years, we'll have another one of those
Okay,
in the
thank
MPO.
I can wait.
Mr. Bray?
Janice, how is that information used?
It's used to help estimate the capacity of the streets and highways. And it's a federal requirement. They can also use it whenever there's a project. They can collect that information on the vehicles, the turning movements and the number of vehicles that use that facility to estimate whether improvements are needed.
Sounds like it's mutually beneficial.
Thank you.
Mr. Scrivener?
As a Campo board member, I will say that that presentation, that plan was presented to the Campo board, and we did see it. Sonny presented that to us, I believe. So it's pretty comprehensive.
Other questions under the MPO tab? Okay, next, redevelopment and grants, pages 89 and 90. Any questions there?
Ms. McMillan, this is, Mr. Mahalovich had asked that question earlier about the neighborhood reinvestment, those types of things.
Yes.
You want to take an opportunity here to talk about that?
Sure. One of the things that happened in this year's budget is all of those Old Town programs that were previously in the non-departmental budget have been moved over to Planning and Protective Services. So now you really kind of get a complete picture of the funding that's going into supporting neighborhoods, neighborhood reinvestment, and those kinds of activities. So all of those are in the redevelopment and grants budget now.
Thank you. Mr. Scrivener?
This is a question, I guess, for the accounting department, and I'm going to guess the answer is probably no. But is there any way to show that history and not have? It's going to be added in there, isn't it? Because if you try to put it in those previous columns.
It would be very difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. I mean, it would really mess up the...
Right, and since we've had the audit and closed the books and those kind of things, it'd be very, very difficult to go back and do that.
Okay, well, it didn't hurt to ask.
Yes.
Sorry. Pages 97. Mr. Scrivener?
I have a question on 93. The materials and supplies budget really jumped, and I noticed that there was a fairly big increase in the postage and some of those other things. Is there something that is going to happen this year? Like the ending balance in 2012 was $791, and we're budgeting $3,500.
In 93, in the entitlement grant?
Well, it's on page 93. Yes, materials and supplies.
Okay. I have to say that these programs never had a real budget, and we're attempting to have a real budget for the entitlement grant. We're allowed to have 20% expenses out of that grant. We get about $200,000 230, 250, it varies per year, and we always adjust it according to how much we actually receive. But this is actually the first real budget that program has had, I have to say. So we're trying to reflect actual administrative expenses and have this program pay for some of the expenses that it does incur instead of trying to sponge off other departments.
Okay. And the same thing I would ask about the contractual services on that same page. There's a fairly significant jump from the ending balance of $118,000 in 2012 and to the proposed budget of $167,750. That is less than what this year's budget is. This year's budget was up to 281 and then now dropping to 167. That's a lot of fluctuation. Could you explain?
The CDBG program budget is partially, 20% of it is administrative expenses. We have one half-time person whose salary is charged to that program, and then the rest are kind of office expenses, if you will. Then if you look at the rest of the program budget under contractual services, all of that is based on an annual plan that's submitted to approved by the council and to Department of Housing and Urban Development. So that pays for the housing rehabilitation, code deficiency programs, energy efficiency improvements, some housing assistance, public improvement programs. You'll see some sidewalk improvement programs that'll come out of that in this year. We've had to wait until we get sufficient funds to do some significant projects, such as going to occur on Ash Street and later next year on Clark Avenue. So those contractual services include those program expenditures.
And who are you contracting with? Would that be like just a building contractor that would agree to repair sidewalks or whatever?
We'll bid that out. You should be getting that in your packets very soon, but that'll be a project that the city bids out. The engineering division of Department of Public Works designed that project, and they'll bid it out, and we'll select a contractor for that project.
But these amounts are largely driven by the amount of grants that we're able to obtain.
Right. That program is a federal program. Jefferson City is an entitlement community now. Since 2003, we've been receiving funds directly from Department of Housing and Urban Development for housing improvements, support of low to moderate income neighborhoods, and projects within those low to moderate income neighborhoods. So, like I said, we're allowed a certain percentage for administration to help cover the administrative expenses that occur for staffing and office expenses, advertising, and outreach and that kind of thing. And then the rest, 80%, goes into the actual program delivery.
So this will probably never be a stable line item because it's going to fluctuate again as the grants fluctuate.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, next tab was building regs. Any questions there? Pages 97 and 98. Building regs. Okay, and last tab, environmental health, pages 101 and 102. Okay. We have heard presentations from all of the departments with the exception of parks that I mentioned earlier, which we will hear a week from Monday. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the city administrator for his discussions with all the department directors during his budget process. A thank you to the mayor for his involvement and discussions with all the department directors as he put his budget together. And then specifically to all the department directors for their presentations. And I know that this has been helpful for me personally, and I hope it's been helpful for and beneficial for you as department directors as well. So thank you for your input. Any comments from council before we adjourn tonight? I have 7:10, and I think we've accomplished our tasks for this evening. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.